Welcome to Industry Insights. Today I'm talking to Cori Muse, who is a food safety professional and an independent auditor. She has also founded Muse Food Safety Solutions LLC. Hello everyone to this month's episode of Industry Insights. Today I'm talking to Cori Muse, a food safety consultant. Hello Cori, it's great to have you today. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me. I am Cori, and as you said, I'm a food safety and regulatory consultant in the United States. I've been in the food industry about 15 years now. I started my career with PepsiCo at Frito-Lay, and I was there for about 7 years. And that's really where I got my food safety and quality foundation. They have very robust systems there and very strong food safety culture, which is great for my career, but also made me a little naive when I left there and went to other companies. So since I've left there, I've worked for a number of different companies, kind of at different stages, small companies, startup companies. I also do GFSI auditing. So I'm an independent auditor through, myself, my business. But I worked for, so I've had a few, I guess you could say, horror stories and have been a whistleblower. And that's really what led me to consulting. Is I'm very passionate about food safety, as you can probably tell if you read my LinkedIn page.
Yeah.
So I do consulting so I can choose my clients and work with companies that really want to do the right thing. And in my career, I've come across these e-com companies, more specifically meal kit companies, and have really made some shocking discoveries about the state of their operations and food safety.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. That's why we've set up this interview, because you have so much to talk about when it comes to meal kit companies. You have had so many bad experiences, and you can share those with us, and we can all learn from your experiences, and we can see how we can make things better. And just as a background information, so having food delivered to your home is not as common in Germany as it already is in the US. It's a growing business here. People are more and more engaged with ordering food, ordering it online or through delivery services. But we're not at all there where you are in the US. And so I think we can learn a lot from what you have to share. And so yeah, just share some of your experience, please. And we're happy to listen to what you have to tell us.
yeah, I mean, in the US, COVID really catapulted the meal kits and the grocery delivery. And really here in the US, what I've noticed is a little bit of misconception, misunderstanding when we say meal delivery. And I spoke about this at the FDA public meeting in October of last year. And to me, what's really important to decipher is that you have three different kinds of food businesses that they're lumping together and they're calling delivery. You have the DoorDash, Uber Eats, who are picking up from a restaurant and basically just transporting your food. And there's a whole world of trouble with that one if you follow my LinkedIn. And mostly it's the drivers and issues with the drivers, as well as the companies that contract the drivers. And I say this because they want to usurp legal responsibility. So they put it on the driver. They don't give them any training. They give them really poor conditions, kind of set the stage for retaliation. And what happens when a disgruntled employee of food retaliates is that consumers get sick or die. So that's not good, but it's still, to me, not as high risk as some of the other models. You have traditional restaurants, which have always been governed in the way that they're being governed. And I wouldn't say that that's even adequate food safety, but it's what we have. So when I talk about food code, I'll just talk about it the way that it currently stands in the US. And then you have grocery delivery. And I won't talk as much about that, because you really are taking pre-packaged items within the store, and either the store is being responsible for putting those items together, putting them in a cooler, and either bringing them to your car when you drive up or driving them to your house. And there are gaps with this model, but not as dangerous as the last, which is the meal kit companies, who we're talking about as if they're a restaurant, but they're operating as a full-scale manufacturer. So they've found a loophole, and perhaps the loophole was early in these operations. The way that they presented themselves to regulators is that we're taking pre-packaged foods, we're just taking it, putting it in a box, maintaining supply chain. And if that were true, there's potential that that could be safe. But when you really dive into what these companies are doing, they're storing massive amounts of ingredients. And a restaurant doesn't have the ability to store a month of product for chicken, beef, fish, temperature controlled ingredients for safety, dairy ingredients, seasonings. And the e-com problem for me is this giant snowball that rolls and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because everything they're doing is uncontrolled, unplanned with science and risk. It's young entrepreneurs with an idea, and they're really running with it. And, a little in their defense, they are, they don't know what they don't know. They're hiring people that aren't qualified to be food safety officers in a food manufacturing facility, or even a restaurant. In some cases, they're kind of promoting within, and that's fine until you're dealing with science and safety. You can't Google these things and get the answers that you need. It's too complex. And so
I think that is, sorry for interrupting you, but I think that is exactly the problem. It's not that they're preparing food that's not safe on purpose, deliberately. They just don't know differently. They have not been trained properly. They're not aware of all these safety and regulations that are out there, temperature control, that is completely new to them. Maybe they are, some young people that have been told by their friends, oh, your brownies are perfect, or your chicken is just so delicious, you ought to be selling it. And then this whole idea starts growing in their minds, and they don't really want to harm people. They just want to share what they can do in their meals. But that's, I think so. Or let me put it differently. Where would you, or how would you approach that specific problem? How would you train these people, or even reach out to them and let them know, hey guys, there are regulations out there, and you need to follow certain rules in order to have your consumers be safe?
Well, this is another problem that's very complex, because you have many factors. How do you make the food safe economically and still make a profit? My advice would be that these companies at minimum need to observe FSMA. So regulators need to step in, because right now they'll tell you, well, we don't have to do that. We're food code. Well, food code isn't appropriate for the nature of what they're doing. And, I have clients now with e-com. Since the public meeting, the FDA has not made an announcement to say, this is what we're going to do. I suspect what they're going to do is make them observe FSMA, because the calls that I'm getting are these food facilities have gotten a 483. So what that means is that the FDA has come in and said, you don't have XYZ. So for me, it's still gray. You're not you're not a food manufacturer, you're a restaurant, you're getting a 483 as if you're a food facility. So my mind is telling me the FDA is likely going to come in and say, all right, you guys need to observe FSMA. When you observe FSMA, now you're looking at things from a risk-based standpoint. You're looking at all of your risk, you're controlling them. What these companies need is, you know, they need everything. Like I wish that I had like a magic answer. You know, they need allergen management. They need to be using FDA approved food grade packaging. A lot of them run out of stuff and they run to Walmart and they grab what they think is cheap and it works. And is it leaching? Is it safe? Does it have the right moisture barrier? I mean, the questions are endless. They're putting all of these items in a box that you cannot put together. If you go to Albertsons and you look at the meat counter, you don't have leaking meat on top of raw produce and seasoning. They're mixing all these things together and they're not holding temperature. So by the time it gets to the customer, these things have leaked. Some of them are raw, some of them are fully cooked. Mm-hmm. The instructions on the two are very different. And as we just said, these operations are inexperienced. So they're not giving consumers the right instructions. I mean, you can go Google some of these places and read on their website. I mean, I've about fallen out of my chair. The last one I read, these kids are putting like frozen meals, like you think of lean cuisine. So they're taking ingredients, they're not testing them for pathogens. They don't know what they've got. So they put it in this tray and they flash freeze it. Okay, great. Because they read on Google that flash freezing things kills microbes, but they don't understand what that means and that it's not validated and that they didn't check the material. They flash frozen it. They've slacked it to put it to their DC center. They refroze it and then they put it on a UPS truck and they ship it to the customer. They tell the customer that they have 6 weeks that they can put it in their freezer, that then they can put it in their fridge and they have up to 2 weeks to eat it. Oh, and by the way, if it arrives and it's thawed, that's okay. Just put it in the freezer. Now think about what I've just told you. I mean, really think about that. This is on a website. Anybody can go read it. And so it really floors me that the FDA is not taking action. I mean, like last year, they should have taken action last year. These places are negligent, they're dangerous, and the people that are ordering these foods are at risk because they don't want to go out and get exposed to COVID. So they're ordering food from their home. And now if you have cancer or you're on any number of immunosuppressant drugs that everyone in the US takes because everyone in the US has an autoimmune disease, you're in trouble. You're in trouble for listeria, salmonella. I mean, you name it, the risk is there. Yeah. It's hard enough for food manufacturers that have carefully designed environmental programs. It's hard enough for them to control pathogens. Now you have a warehouse of people operating as if it's a restaurant, dropping stuff on the floor, picking it up. I mean, I don't know. The things that I've seen are really horrifying. And yeah, like the feds need to step in yesterday.
But I think a lot of those companies that you're now describing, not all of them, but a lot, are simply too small to be on their radar. I mean, not the ones who have a website up, you know, and are kind of publicly represented, but those who are, you know, just like, as I said before in my example, you know, friends telling me, oh, your food is so great, and you decide, oh yeah, I'm going to sell it now. No one really noticed these companies, and still they harm consumers because, you know, as you said, they just don't know how to handle food properly and how to process and how to deliver, how to send it out in a way that protects both the food and, of course, the consumer. They are just not aware. And by that, they are kind of creating a really, how do you say, toxic environment for those companies who are aware, the bigger brands of food delivery companies who are following those rules. So they are kind of taking away their business or making it sound all bad. And people are, I can imagine that people feel uncertain and they are insecure and they don't know, where can I order my food? So do you have a, like a checklist for consumers where they can go and say, well, so this company looks like they know what they're doing. And not only, I mean, in today's world with internet, you can seem to be a huge company, and then, but in the end, you're just a cook, you know, standing in your own kitchen preparing food. So that is not, it's, I'm not going by the size of the marketing presentation, but are there certain criteria that a consumer can kind of look for when they want to order food?
Yes, yes and no. So, I'm experienced, and I would say I get fooled sometimes because marketing is deceptive. That's why, that's why it's there, is to manipulate and deceive. That's what marketing is.
Yeah.
For me, I would say do your research. If you're not a food safety professional, that might be more difficult. In fact, maybe I should write a little blog about it. To give consumers an idea of what to ask for. But I would contact the company, and I do this just because this is my passion, is I kind of troll these companies on social media, and I'll ask them these questions, and more often than not, they can't answer them. And if they can't answer your questions, don't order from them. They should be able to tell you how they source their ingredients. They should be able to tell you, I would ask simple questions. Call them and say, my food looks thawed. What do I do? And if they tell you, oh, if it feels cold, you're good, don't eat it. But that's not even a good enough control. And I say that because if it arrives to you, you should take the internal temperature of everything in that box, and you should understand that things like seafood that have to remain frozen, if they're not frozen solid, they have to go in the trash. Even if your food arrives at temperature, was it maintained at temperature? I can't tell you that. So I'd say there's still a risk, but at minimum, you should be understanding, do they have allergen management? Do they label for allergens, or are they sending you an email that's just like a general, oh, this is your chicken walnut salad, but it's not a real, ingredient statement. If you have allergies, I would say don't order meal kits. I mean, honestly, don't order meal kits. At this point in the game, I don't believe that they have good allergen controls.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just ask a lot of questions and really, really understand, how long have they been in business? Are they registered with the FDA? If they're registered with the FDA, then you have just a little bit more assurance that there is some oversight and they're being inspected. And people say, well, Cori, the health department inspects them. What's the big deal? Well, the health department's really not trained to inspect for the hazards and the non-conformances that I see as a food manufacturing auditor are not the same for a restaurant, because the activity that you're doing, if you're running a restaurant with your equipment and your maintenance schedule, your sanitation, is much different than if you're running a full-scale operation, because again, the time for error is much, much greater. So you have a tiny extra layer of protection. If the health department comes in, you hope that if they see, somebody storing dripping chicken over produce, that's going to stand out to them, and they're going to say, no, you can't do that. But there are just so many things that are different with food manufacturing versus restaurants, that's important for the person inspecting to really be trained to look out for these hazards.
Yeah, exactly. And so because time's up, sorry, but to summarize what we've just been talking about, there's a lot to do on all sides. I mean, for auditors, inspectors, they need to be maybe a little bit more aware, and also be trained better so that they know what to look for. then for those companies, the meal kit companies, they just need to get training. They need to do more research and align more with the laws and regulations that are out there. And but then also for the consumer, oh gosh, there's a lot the consumer needs to be doing in order to be safe, as you just mentioned. And I think, your idea about putting a blog up and help the consumer learn what to look for and see what questions to ask, that is a great idea, and I support that. That is wonderful, because I mean the average consumer, how would he or she know? It's just, it's you order food and you assume it is healthy for you, it's good for you, as you said. You don't want to get out, you don't want to get COVID, or you have other health issues. So you want to be safe. And then what appears to be a safe approach to food just turns out the complete opposite. And so, yeah, there's a lot to do on all the on sites, or all the parties involved. And so let's hope people listen and watch this interview and learn and go on your LinkedIn page, and hopefully you have the time to come up with a blog like that, and that would be wonderful. It would help protect consumers, and that's in the end what we're all trying to do, because we are all consumers. So that should be our number one goal when it comes to food safety. And yeah, well, again, time's up. I'm really sorry. I could have talked with you for way longer than we had the opportunity to do that. And so thank you very much, Cori. Maybe if you have a blog, we'll do another interview and talk about your blog.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for having me. Like I said, this is one that gets me going on a tangent. So anytime I'll talk about this subject.
Yeah, and it's so important, and that's why I'm really so happy that you took the time to join me today. And yeah, looking forward to maybe a next interview with you. And yeah, have a great day. Stay safe. And keep the great work up that you're doing. Thank you very much, Cori.
Thank you.
Bye. That's been this month's episode of Industry Insights with my guest, Cori Muse. Thanks for your attention, and see you again soon. Bye.